Welcome back to TBC Kids Corner. We are still in the middle of our Fluoresce series where science meets faith, and we're really learning how to shine our light for God in the world around us, especially when things get dark. So far we've talked about hope and truth and just generally fluorescing. This week we have another topic, compassion. And before we get to that, I wanted to let you guys know that we are still working on getting Virgil back to Virgil size. Had a minor setback, little bitty setback. Virgil, you want to come out, buddy? Where are you? Oh, there you are. It's okay. They're not going to laugh at you. I think you're cute. Come on, We shrunk him even more. He's a little angry. He's a little frustrated. Short-tempered. But, we're taking care of him. We think we might be on the right track. I don't know. We don't know. The applesauce we got last week did not help anything. So he's a little stressed out, and we're just going to let him hang out. Oh, look, you're about the same size as Mr. Rogers now. That's fun, right? Right, buddy? So today we're talking about compassion, and before we get to our Bible story, I wanted to do another cool fluorescent experiment. And to do that, we're going to need to turn off all these lights and get our black light on. Ready? All right, we are back in the lab and ready for some science. So what you're going to need for this particular experiment is really simple. You need vegetable oil or baby oil. Any kind of oil will work really well. You need neon paint, but it needs to be water-based. I have tempera, which isn't necessarily water-based. If you have neon watercolors, I think that'll work the best. But this is what I could get, and it seems to work pretty well. And neon colors, you don't have to have a bunch of colors. I got a 4-pack, and it was really inexpensive on Amazon or at a craft store. You're gonna need oil, paint, cups to mix the oil and the paint together, a clear jar or cup or container, and then you're going to fill that almost all the way up with water, just regular old water. So you're going to take your oil and you're going to put some in a cup, and then you're going to take some paint and put it in with the oil, and then you're going to stir it up. Now the oil and the paint aren't going to mix. It's going to look a little bit chunky, and that's what it's supposed to do. So what we're going to see is different kind of weights or densities of liquids. So water is heavier than oil. Oil is always going to sit up at the top of water. They don't mix, they don't play well. So the oil is going to stay at the top, but the paint is going to be heavier than the oil. So it's going to start to trickle down to the bottom of the jar. It's gonna look pretty cool. I thought it looked kind of cool, and I'll be showing you some close-ups as I talk through it. So you're gonna mix them up, gently pour them in, and then just sit back and watch with a black light on and see how it kind of just trickles down. Let's do it. As you can see, the oil is staying here up at the top, but the paint is slowly falling down to the bottom. It's actually really cool looking, especially once you get a black light on it. And it just looks like a party in a glass, especially when it lights up. And then once it's done and it's all settled at the bottom, it looks really cool too. So there's an easy experiment to do that shows fluorescence and density. You can use science to teach you about faith. because we are talking about fluorescing this series. Let's head down to our blackboard and learn a little bit more about what Jesus had to teach us about being compassionate to others and fluorescing by being compassionate. The word for today is compassion. Compassion is seeing a need, seeing people hurting or sad and feeling bad, feeling it in your stomach and in your heart, and then doing something about it. Jesus showed compassion over and over again in his ministry, and we're going to talk about a time when he showed compassion not once but twice to a crowd of people. Our story today comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 14, verses 13 through 21. John the Baptist had just been killed, and Jesus was sad. John was his cousin, and he did amazing things to get people prepared for Jesus' coming. Jesus wanted some time alone to grieve and to pray, so he left everyone to go be alone. But there was a giant crowd of people who followed. Among the crowd were people who were sick, who were injured, who were crippled, who had leprosy, who were possessed, and they knew Jesus could help them. So they followed him, and they gathered, and they really just wanted to talk to Jesus. Instead of Jesus looking at this crowd and saying, "Oh my gosh, go away," or feeling angry or irritated with them, he felt compassion towards them. He saw that they were hurting and they were in need, and he felt bad. So instead of sending them away and feeling bad afterwards, he felt bad and then he did something about it. He went to the crowd and he healed all those who needed healing, and he taught them all about God and God's love. Later that day, the crowd was still gathered with Jesus, and it was getting late. It was getting dark, and none of them had brought food with them. The disciples went to Jesus and said, "Jesus, the people are hungry and it's getting kind of late. Maybe we should send them all away. They can go find food on their own." Jesus saw the crowd and he saw how hungry they were, and he felt compassion towards them. He saw that they were hungry and they were in need, and instead of sending them away, he did something amazing. He asked the disciples to find whatever food they had on hand. The disciples looked at him confusedly, but okay. And they went off and they gathered what they had. They only had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, that's enough for maybe Jesus and his disciples, but this was a giant crowd. The Bible tells us there were 5,000 men in this crowd. There were also women and children, so there were thousands and thousands of people, all gathered, all hungry. That 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, that wasn't going to make anyone happy or fill anyone's bellies. But instead of sending them away hungry, Jesus took the bread and he took the fish and he prayed over them. He asked for God's blessing and for the people in the crowd. And as he prayed, he started to hand out the bread and the fish to the disciples to give to the people in the crowd. And the bread and the fish kept coming. The disciples kept handing out the food, and the people kept eating, and they did this until everyone was full. And afterwards, the disciples gathered up all of the extra food, and they had 12 baskets full of extra bread and fish. The people were so happy. They felt so loved. They ate all that bread and fish, and they were full because Jesus saw their need and he wanted to help. Now, you and I may see people who are hungry, and we may not have the ability to give them more than what we have, but Jesus can do amazing things with a very small amount. So when you see someone hurting, or someone hungry, or someone sick, You don't have to work a miracle, and you may think that you don't have anything to give, but Jesus teaches us, give what you can and let God do the rest. Jesus shows compassion and teaches us compassionate ways throughout his ministry. Not only here with the crowd, but in Luke, he brings a widow's son back to life. And also in Luke and then in Matthew, he tells parables to teach us how to be compassionate. He talks about the Good Samaritan and the unforgiving servant. We want to fluoresce for Jesus, and a great way to do that is by showing compassion like he did. If we can show compassion to others, we can show people just how amazing God is. So as we saw in today's story, compassion is more than just feeling bad for somebody or for a group of people. For compassion to truly fluoresce, we need to do what Jesus did. He didn't just feel bad, he did something to make it better. He could have looked at those people who were hungry and said, oh, that's too bad. Tough luck. Send them away. But he didn't. He felt bad, but then he acted on it. Just like you and I can act on when we feel bad for somebody. If you see someone struggling, standing around and just going, it's a real bummer, is not the same as seeing someone and then doing something. So as I've been thinking about compassion and how I can be compassionate to others, like Jesus was compassionate to the crowds, and honestly compassionate for us. He saw us in our sin and all the bad things we do, and instead of just saying like, well, that's a bummer, they're never going to get to hang out in heaven, he did something. He died on the cross for our sins, and then he rose again. And if we believe all that, here and here, we get to be with him in heaven. He was compassionate, and he showed his compassion by loving us to death. So I'm seeing little Virgil here, and I feel bad for him. I really, really do. And I wasn't quite sure what to do besides keep working on trying to make him big again. But then I had a thought. Hey, Virgil, I know you're sad, and I know that you feel really tiny. I have something for you. This is fun. I have a tiny kids corner for you. Look at that. Oh, and you fit so perfectly. See? By feeling bad for Virgil and not doing anything except make short jokes, I wasn't really showing compassion, but helping him feel a little bit normal and a little bit happier, that's true compassion like Jesus taught us. So I really like the little Mr. Rogers. I'll get a close-up of this at the end. So you guys, be compassionate this week. If you see someone struggling, if you see someone sad, if you see someone hurt or angry, or you just feel bad for them, don't just sit back and feel bad. Do something. Find some easy way to show compassion to them, just like Jesus showed compassion. I hope you guys have a great week. I am still taking fan art and letters. They make us so happy. And if you want to write a teeny tiny one for little bitty Virgil, I'm sure it would totally make his day too. The address is down below. Go ahead and like, subscribe so you get every new video. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.